Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner Davis.
And here we are. Good afternoon to everybody. It's such a beautiful day outside. And just want to say hi to everyone and those of you who are listening. And we appreciate you tuning in and making sure that we can continue with our broadcasts now and in the future. It's for the community. Today, we are, as you saw in our promotion, as most of you have seen in our promotion, we're talking to one of the fantastic authors that we thought that could be displayed. She is an author, historian, and an educator. And the connection is here is that our summer literacy program, in conjunction with the summer jobs program that the World Community Magazine is doing with Ms. McIver. It's an important interaction here because one of the books that's going to be used by Ms. McIver in the summer literacy program, as was it in the past. This time, we're fortunate enough to have the author of one of the books, and one of the books is called An Apple for Harriet Tubman. Now, we've talked about Harriet Tubman a lot in the past, and we should never stop talking about her because of how important she was in history and why we're standing on her shoulder. And we can't talk about her enough. So this particular book, I won't give you a synopsis of it yet, but you can see down at the bottom it says that the author is Miss Glennette Tilley Turner, and she's going to be with us. We feel so fortunate to have her as a guest today because, like I said earlier, there's an important connection there with one of the books that's in the famous Horry County summer literacy program under the guidance of Miss Marjorie McIver. So, without further ado, let's get with Miss Turner. I think, but she prefers to call her for Glennette. I'm going to call you Glennette from here on in. Okay, and of course, everyone knows the icon of Conway, Miss Marjorie McIver is on the right, and Mrs. McIver is like I mentioned earlier. That's the connection there, and we wanted to really take advantage of this opportunity to have the author of the book that Ms. McIver is going to be using, and I say just out on the outset, I don't think any of us thought that something like this would be happening. A lot of times you get the books, but you don't see the author, and it's kind of difficult getting to the author. But with the keen skill set of my wife, Mrs. Joella Queen, she was not only skillful, but she was persistent about making sure that this happens today and for our viewers. And we're going to make the best out of it. We know it's going to be good. So, yes. So Glennette, I keep starting to say Miss Turner. Glennette, tell us a little bit about yourself, and you can go in depth as much as you want to. I've got your bio with me, but I'll let the people know right now it's too much to be. You got a lot of stuff in this bio, and you never want to put it down. I didn't after reading your bio. So if you give us a little synopsis, maybe for lack of a better word, of that, I would appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Well, when I was growing up, my father was president of a small but very poor college, denominational school in Florida. So in the daytime, he was a president and had all the responsibilities for that job. But in order to be able to pay the teachers and buy the books, he had to drive to churches within a 50-mile radius in the evening and pass the collection plate. And the mother knew that if he had been working all day, he was tired. And so she thought if she sent her chatty daughter along, that I would be company for my father. And, if he was talking to me, he'd be less likely to fall asleep at the wheel. So they gave me an opportunity to just have my dad all to myself. And he was interested in so many things. He'd point out the constellations and just tell me all kinds of information that was, interesting. But the thing he liked most to talk about is African American history in general and family history in particular. But he ended every story that he told me the same way. He'd say, "When you grow up, you should write this down." So I just thought, that's what my daddy said I was supposed to grow up and do. So that's what I grew up and did. And so at first, my writing was really about notable African Americans, and I wrote two collective biographies that um, had skits in them, kind of do-it-yourself skits. So the format was, a short biography of the person, and then a skit that would tell something about their life. For example, the skit about Mary McLeod Bethune told about her life, or her life, of course, but then it also told about how at the beginning, when she set up her school that later became Bethune-Cookman University, they had fruit crates and just sticks that they stuck berries and, stuck into blackberries or other berries that they could use as ink, and just, really just had to improvise the, the materials they used. I'm sorry. It won't take just a second. If it, well, I think it would just ring one more time and it'll stop. No, I beg your pardon. But anyway, that's an example of the collective biographies. I wrote two. One was called Take a Walk in Their Shoes, and the other was Follow in Their Footsteps. But then in 1968, our family moved to Wheaton, Illinois. And I had always been interested in Harriet Tubman. Really as a kid, I was just, so amazed at the impossible things that she had been successful in doing. And she was a conductor on the Underground Railroad.
Right.
But when I got to Wheaton, a new neighbor said that the Underground Railroad had operated here. And since Wheaton was in the Midwest, I just couldn't believe her because everything I had ever read about the Underground Railroad took place along the East Coast, in states like Pennsylvania or Massachusetts, and leading straight on up to Canada. And so I thought my neighbor was just kind of exaggerating, but it made me curious, and I thought, well, it won't hurt to, just go and check it out and find out she doesn't know what she's talking about and go on with the rest of my life. Instead, I found out there was just a little information, but definitely some information about Underground Railroad and anti-slavery activities here in Illinois. And I'd gone to high school and college in Illinois, and no teacher or textbook had ever mentioned any Underground Railroad activity. And so when I began to research, oh, please excuse me. I'm going to have to excuse myself in a little while, and please, I beg your pardon, I had a, um, I think, we moved a lot of things around today, and so I don't have the phone at hand. I hope it won't interrupt us again. Please forgive me. But
That's right.
I uh, found information about the Underground Railroad here. And so I felt shortchanged since I'd gone to high school and college and no teacher had ever mentioned it. So I thought while I was doing research and learning about it, that I should write about it so present and future generations would have the benefit of what I'd found out. And so I wrote a book. It took about 20 years because I got so interested in doing the research and learning new things that I, just took such a long time to gather the material. But eventually I did publish the book, and it was so well received that the Secretary of State in Illinois bought copies for every public library. So every library in the state had a copy of the Underground Railroad in Illinois book that I wrote. And so that, really um, pleased me very, very much. But once I had found out about Illinois, I began to find out about, you know, the activity in other states. And also, um, as it happened, there was a senator from Illinois, Senator Paul Simon, and like me, he had done a lot of independent research, rather than you know, just going to existing resources. He had done a lot of research, and he was in Congress, and he had written a bill directing the National Park Service to study all the remaining information they could about the Underground Railroad. And he read of my work. A lot of my work was started during the early years before the bicentennial year. And so there were a number of newspaper articles about my research, and I think that's how he learned of it. But he asked me to be on a 9-member advisory committee with the National Park Service. So I was, and in the meantime, my day job was teaching second grade. So here I was, a second grade teacher, and being an advisor to these historians from the National Park Service. The other people who were on that same advisory committee were university professors, and they wore tweed jackets and smoked pipes, and really had a great sense of their own importance. But since I was a second grade teacher, when they talk about something I didn't know the answer to, I'd raise my hand and I'd ask the question, and the professors would remove their pipes and cup their ears because they wanted to know too, and were too proud to, admit that they didn't know. But anyway, we advised the National Park Service. We studied and we went to a number of the locations, and it was just a rich and wonderful experience for me. But at the end, we suggested that the National Park Service, form an organization called the Underground Railroad Network to Freedom. And they did organize that. It was passed in Congress. And I even had the privilege of going to Washington for the signing. The senator who had recommended me was no longer in office, but he was succeeded by Senator Carol Moseley Braun of Illinois. And so I went to Senator Braun's office, and her secretary drove me around, and we went to the White House, and President Clinton signed the bill, and then went around and gave each of us a ballpoint pen, which may have been been used in the signing of the bill. So I really felt like a big girl, wanted to have a second grade teacher and end up, going to the White House. But the Network to Freedom that we recommended, the organization for the Park Service, has continued through this year and to this day. And it recommends Underground Railroad sites that really can be authenticated. And it's just really like the good housekeeping seal of approval if a site can be recognized by the National Underground Railroad Network Freedom. And
So, yeah, go ahead.
excuse me, I'm
No,
like
that was
monologue.
a,
Go ahead.
that's okay. Yeah, I was about to ask a question, but if you want to continue, fine. That's what.
No, well, you ask what we were about to say.
About the I wanted to know what was the impetus or what gave you the courage to write on an apple for Harriet Tubman? Was that because I've seen I think you wrote a number of other books
Mhm.
that saw online.
Well, as I was doing research for my book, I met a friend whose name was Faye, and um, she and I were going to a grocery store. She was coming out of a local grocery store, and I was going in. And her son was wearing a T-shirt that said "FAMU" or "FAMC" at that time, Florida. Um,
Florida A&M,
A&M was in a college, and now
you're
it's a
right.
university.
Rest.
But the T-shirt, and I said, "Oh, are you from Florida?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Oh, well, I used to live in Florida. And my father was president of that school." And so we got to talking and just became great friends. And she invited me over to have coffee. She thought that children shouldn't know that grown-ups have first names, so we called each other, Ms. Turner, and she called me Ms. And I called her Ms. Daniels. But she had the good fortune to babysit for um, a relative of Harriet Tubman. She had lived in Tallahassee, and a couple in Tallahassee that was related to Harriet Tubman used to want to go to the New York area in the summers. And when my friend was a teenager, they would take her along to babysit for the kids. And she stayed at the home of the relative who'd actually known Harriet Tubman. And so when she tested me to find out if I was really, really, truly interested in the Underground Railroad. When she was convinced, she said, "Would you like to meet a relative of Harriet Tubman's?" And I had gone for coffee, and I think spilled almost my coffee, sugar, and cream. When she asked me that, because of course I wanted to meet the relative. And I interviewed Mrs. Alice Brickler, who was the relative, and she told me the story of Harriet Tubman's love of apples. She knew all the family stories that had never been in any other books. Most books you've ever read about Harriet Tubman tell about her Underground Railroad work. But this talked about her as a child and how she loved apples and how they were a, a forbidden fruit, sort of, because uh, in an effort to be controlling, slaveholders told enslaved people that they could wash, polish, and do everything except bite into an apple. And Harriet was curious as a kid to know what a luscious apple would taste like. And, she probably smelled it as she was picking it. And one time she thought the coast was clear and that the overseer was going to be out of sight. And so she could bite into an apple. But and she saw him going down to another field. But when she bit into the apple, he whirled around and whipped her and gave her a whipping that left scars that lasted all the rest of her life. Well, as a little kid and as an enslaved child, of course, she couldn't do anything then, but she promised herself two things. One, she would be free, and two, she would have all the apples she wanted. And of course, she did get free. And as an adult, she built a house in Auburn, New York, and she planted apple trees. And when the apple all up and down the lane leading to the house, and when the apples were ripe each year, she invited all the friends and neighbors to bring their baskets and bags and help themselves to apples. And so, in a way, the apple was a forbidden fruit, and yet it was one that symbolized freedom, and it
Right.
also showed how she shared, and how thoughtful and gracious she was in every way. The other thing, may I tell about my new book?
Yes, you may. Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, Well, as I said, have been intrigued by Harriet Tubman, for years and inspired by her. And so I just, the more I read about her, the more amazing things I learned about things she had accomplished, or just seemingly impossible things. And one of the stories that intrigued me so much was how one Christmas week she rescued her brothers. She learned that they were going to be sold during the Christmas holiday, and she arrived in Dorchester County the day before Christmas, and she had let her father and another man who lived in Dorchester County know that she was coming, so he could let her brothers know where she'd be and what her plan was. And so she arrived, and two of the brothers were able to meet her as they had, as she had, asked, and they went to her parents' house and hid in the corn shed, and waited for the last brother to come. And he didn't come, and he didn't come. But what she didn't know is that his wife was expecting a baby, and he wanted so much to be there to wait for the birth of the baby. And so he did, and he finally joined Harriet and the others at their parents' house. Well, Harriet uh, had, of course, to eat, and had, as I said, contacted her father. And so he wanted to bring food out to the corn crib. Here, this was Christmas Day, and they, were certainly hungry and would want to eat. But he wanted so much to be able to truthfully say he hadn't seen her that he blindfolded himself. And so he brought the food out to Harriet and the brothers, and they were able to eat. And then in the evening, he walked down the road with them. Meanwhile, Harriet, was just so sad not to be able to see or tell her mother that she was there, and but she knew that her mother would just be so excited to see her that she would, probably call attention. People even on the next house over would hear the mother's excitement if she saw Harriet after, Harriet had been away so many years. So she couldn't dare, see her mother, but still she just knew that that's, what she just have to do in order to be sure that the brothers could safely escape. They walked and walked and walked, and so much that she really walked the leather off of her shoes. And they got to Delaware, and then there was a white shoemaker who worked with a black man in Philadelphia, who um, really saw to it that the brothers changed their names uh, for their protection. And also, he interviewed them and learned their stories, what their lives had been like in slavery, and put them on a train to Canada. So by New Year's Eve, Harriet Tubman had walked all that distance and gotten them to Philadelphia and had them safely in Canada in order to celebrate New Year's Eve. And this is the cover of my brand new book, and it's called A Gift of Freedom. And you can see why
Freedom.
it was called A Gift of Freedom if it was a Christmas time, and she was able to free them through by going for them. So That's the
So,
book.
but that hasn't been fully published yet, though, has it?
It will be actually the pub date is January, but this is an advanced copy, and
Yeah.
so this is the book. And the artwork is just extraordinary. It's just beautiful. It's being published by Abrams Books, and it's just really a lovely, lovely book. I love it.
Well, you had some fantastic graphics in the in Apple for Harriet.
Mm,
Really, really, very, very depiction, for lack of a better word, I guess, very depicting,
hmm.
and illustrations were just, to me, I thought was pretty good,
I
really
thought so.
magnificent.
I like him too.
Yeah. So the can I could just revert to the previous discussion that you were talking about the Underground Railroad, the network.
Hmm.
Now in Illinois. Now is that sort of a foundation, so to speak?
Well, the Underground Railroad really wasn't as organized as as a lot of the books depicted, but the National Park Service calls the Underground Railroad project program they have the Network to Freedom, and so that's where the word network comes in. But it's recently been found. For years, people thought that the term Underground Railroad was based on the fact that a enslaved couple was being chased by a slaveholder, and when they crossed the Ohio River, they just seemed to disappear. And it was about the time that real actual railroads were had captured the imagination of the public, and the railroad terms and like conductor and passenger and all were popular. But they said that there it was believed the slaveholder had said that that couple had disappeared as if they were on an underground railroad. But in more recent years, it turns out there was an African American man who was a newspaper person who had used the terminology Underground Railroad. Is credited with it. So that is, there's new things still being learned.
Were you were you able to attend the I think it was last year, I believe, or year before, where they dedicated a stamp for
No, I didn't
that was
get.
in Auburn, New York, I believe.
Is that right? That's where her home was, where she had those
Right.
apple trees growing. No, I wasn't able to attend that, but I knew there had been a stamp. And actually, the first of the Black History series of U.S. postage stamps was the Harriet Tubman stamp. And if there, do I have time to tell you a kind of a
Absolutely.
side story?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, when I went to the signing uh, for President Clinton, was signing that Network to Freedom bill. Um, I was wearing a pair of earrings. The post office had not only published the stamp, but they'd made earrings, and I was wearing a pair of earrings that were dangling earrings. And when President Clinton, went around handing out these ballpoint pens that he'd signed the legislation with, he stopped and he just sort of held my hand and didn't say anything. Well, it was right about the time of the Monica Lewinsky scandal, and there were a lot of newspaper reporters that were sitting outside the White House, just waiting for any little tidbit of news. And I saw I knew one of the reporters from Illinois. As I came in, I saw her, and so um, I, was aware of that. Well, President Clinton, stopped and just sort of held my hand. He didn't hand me the pen, and he just stood there, and I didn't know why. Well, it turned out he was looking at this Harriet Tubman earring, and because it was, a dangle, it was, doing like this, and I guess he was trying to, get a good look at it. And then he said, "Nice earrings," and he went on to the next person. Well, when I got outside, I saw this reporter and she said, "Did he say anything?" I said, no. I thought all I'd need is to say he'd made a pass at this old black woman. And so I just didn't tell her that he'd said anything. I just went on and got back in Carol Mosley Brown's car and went back where I was supposed to, back to the airport probably. So
it's amazing that you continued on even from that. So I, you we're talking about over 40, 50 years that you've been involved in
yeah,
this, right?
my first book was published in 1976, I think. And really, I've done other
Right.
books. I've found that the not only Illinois and states on the East Coast that like Massachusetts and Pennsylvania were involved in the Underground Railroad, but also Florida was very much involved. And I wrote a book called Fort Mose. I don't know if you can see over my shoulder there. Fort Mose is the way Mose is spelled, but it's the first free black um, officially sanctioned settlement in the United States. And there was a man who's head of it was Francisco Menendez. They had really excellently organized um, community and really were the front line of defense. Many of the people who the people at Fort Mose had escaped from South Carolina, and the Catholics in St. Augustine sent word that if they would join the Catholic Church and the militia, that they would be freed. And but then they were positioned. Fort Mose was right on the water, so slaveholders from South Carolina came looking for them or to made an effort to recapture them. They would fight to the death, to keep from being taken back into slavery. So in a way, they protected St. Augustine, and so that was one story of the Underground Railroad in Florida. Then I learned of John Horace, who was a Black Seminole leader. And so the next book I wrote about the Underground Railroad in Florida was called A Man Called Horse. His name really translated to the word horse. And he worked with a Native American Seminole, and they fought in the Second Seminole War. And then when the Seminoles were driven out of Florida, they went to Oklahoma, but found the conditions there were not desirable. And so John Horace and Wildcat uh, took their people to Mexico and lived there and also helped defend the borders. Later, the people that John Horace had taken to Mexico were invited to come back and form the Negro Seminole Scouts in Texas, and
Right.
again to defend the border. So those are two additional uh, Underground Railroad related books that took place.
Well, pretty soon I'm gonna with all that stuff we're gonna ask your age pretty soon.
I'm 91.
Whoa! Wow, and that's fantastic. We have there are a couple of in our chat column over here. We have a couple of questions, and one is that what advice by Miss Priscilla Fuller? What advice would you give to students, parents regarding the teaching of our history based on the barriers or restrictions we now face? I think we're talking about like the CRTs things, stuff like that.
Well, Harriet Tubman's great niece told me that Harriet Tubman used to tell the children, learn all you can, because what's in your head, no one can take away. So not only learn, but do like you and your wife and Miss McIver are doing, and teach the children. I understand that just this weekend you took the children down to the Combahee River where Harriet Tubman had just masterminded the escape of, was it 700 slaves in one night?
Right.
And
Well, it's usually worth 700 plus, but some people say 750,
hmm,
720, something like that.
to just learn the stories and go to the places and, read and learn all you can. Just follow Harriet Tubman's advice. And so I think you're doing just what is the answer to that question.
Yeah, there was another question if you got time. There's this says, many thanks to you, but she said, uh, thanks for the special presentation regarding the works around the Underground Railroad. She said, would you please repeat the full name and the year of the bill passed by President Bill Clinton?
Oh boy, I'm drawing a blank. Look just at I just Google it. Go to the National Park Service Network to Freedom website, um, and it's a rich, wonderful website. I just think that if you're interested in the subject, that you'll, just find so much information there, and you'll find, the exact date, and rather than me trying to guess upon it.
Right. Well, yeah. Um, yeah, so you can see that there's a lot of interest in people wanting to know about your Underground Railroad network. I'm just going to say that that's probably the
Well,
title of
thank you.
that.
Well, I think the Underground Railroad has all the excitement of a suspense novel. It has all the adventure of a great adventure book, and it's history that really happened. And so, it's just a thrilling subject to, as Harriet Tubman said, learn all you can. So, by all
Right.
means, just you know, um, do just try to learn everything you can about the Underground Railroad. And thank you. I am going to need to excuse myself,
Yeah.
and we'll
I
just
don't know why
appreciate
you do it. Liz, I don't know why you do us like that, but you,
it.
Well, it's been a delight, and
yeah, I'm serious.
if I may say so, I've
Yes.
thoroughly enjoyed your presentation,
Well, thank
and I've got my notes. They know I take notes. I'm a note taker, and I
Absolutely.
will definitely be able to use that. In addition to your book, we are
you.
making connections with other books that deal
Mhm.
with the um, Underground Railroad, with the Travel to Freedom. And one
Mhm.
of the
Right.
books that we have is Born on the Water, and that's by
Mhm.
Nicole Hannah Jones. So we make connections based on
Oh,
the
be
different
wonderful.
ages. We've got books for the young reader, the non reader, the emerging reader, and the
Mm.
young adult reader. And when you
Oh,
talked about the adventures of Harriet, we use
mhm.
this book by Steve Williams and
Mm.
called Harriet Tubman and John Bowley's Most Excellent Adventure. So
Oh,
we make connections with these books from the very emerging reader to the
that's
young
wonderful.
adult to the adult reader.
Oh, that's
And
excellent.
thank you for sharing. And I will be adding these notes to the presentation as
Well,
well.
thank you. Well, thank you for the work you're doing. I just think that's wonderful. You were just kind of like two, um, hands working together. Like it's one thing to have the books, but another to have the books reach
Right.
the children, and for you to
Right.
interpret them and give them the kind of experiential background you are. I think it's just wonderful. Thank you.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
That's great. Yeah. So
I,
thank you so much, Glennette.
Mhm.
That's you prefer calling you that. So just want to let you know that we certainly appreciate your presence this evening, and we know you have to go. You informed us of that
Mhm.
earlier,
Right.
that you
Well,
had to
thank you.
depart kind of early. So we respect that.
That was my
Uh,
privilege. Thank you.
yeah. And so I don't see why we can't talk again sometime at another time,
I'd like that. Well,
especially
when
when you
the
get.
new book comes out, let's
Yeah.
talk then.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
Take
All
care, and
right.
thank you again.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, and we'll be seeing her. Uh, so, Ms. McIver, so
Yes.
so this lends itself to be very valuable in term for your reading, for your students on the summer uh, literacy program, right?
Mhm.
Right.
It does. And as I said earlier, we make connections with the books that we read, so the kids won't be reading in isolation. And
Right.
in addition to that, we have non-readers because we do have some 6-year-olds in the program who are
Right.
just beginning to read. And then as they read further and comprehend better, then we introduce them to another book that would be more appropriate for their age and developmental levels. So, and then of course we have the young adult readers. So we have books on all different levels.
Okay. So now, speaking of levels, the age groups, you had it listed in one, I believe, at one time on. By the way, to our viewers, we had an excellent kickoff this past Saturday at the library. I'd never seen such enthusiasm in a long time with our young people. It was really, in awe. I was in awe, and at some point I was so enthused about it that I was just filled up just to see the young people there who with some of their parents. With the parents were there too. I like to see that, you know.
I think the beauty of Saturday dealt with the 3 authors that we had present. We
Right.
had authors of the books, just like the author tonight, Ms. Turner.
Right.
We had 3 authors that presented, and one definitely told a story that captivated the audience, the young people and the old, including me, and that was Steve Williams.
Steve Williams,
Who,
right?
yes, and the
Steve.
other, it was were the Isaac and Tracy Bailey.
Bailey, right?
Um,
Yeah.
Isaac is a professor at Davidson, and of course, we all know Tracy Bailey, Dr. Tracy Bailey, because she is now the national director of Freedom Readers, and she is a published author herself. In our thread of books, we will be using Isaac's book for sure, and that's the one that's called My Brother Moochie. And that is such a poignant reading selection. And he talks about his brother who was incarcerated and who still, I believe, is, but the story behind this and how that incarceration impacted the family members. And he is really a stickler about this particular book. And we are offering the read of that book to one of our young, especially young boys who will be in the program. So I appreciated their attendance at the kickoff and their input and the exercise that Isaac used to introduce himself.
Right. Right.
He who was once a stutterer and how he was able to perhaps overcome it. Those kids will never forget that particular segment of the program because it was awesome.
Caught a lot
It
of
was
attention.
moving and interactive.
Yeah. And but now, guess who was emceeing this whole thing?
Icon Jr.
Icon Junior over there. Icon Junior over there. She just got on. Come on, you mute yourself. Come on.
She's probably laughing.
Yeah, but
I am laughing. Ms. McIver, she's giving me that moniker, Icon Junior, and I'm so not worthy. But thank you so much for humoring everybody and me included.
well, you know, everybody.
We had a good time Saturday.
Oh, really, and the guidance, your skill as an MC, more than an MC at doing this time, because you made sure that the coming speakers on there and the people who were going to speak were there. You and Ms. McIver. So kudos to both of you for that. I don't know how
I
you
would
did
like
it.
April to identify those presenters because they were powerful.
Yes,
Yeah.
the lineup was indeed powerful. We had Dr. Torian Hodges with Inlet Premier Implant and Cosmetic Dentistry, along with Dr. Winston D. McIver. We had, of course, the special guest that Ms. McIver just mentioned. We even had, kind of an impromptu guest who lended a lot of information in terms of his experience raising his sons, working in with the Department of Defense and in cybersecurity, and just the importance of nurturing the career interests of young people, and also what the community needs to do to make sure that our young people understand what they need to do to be successful in the future. And he kind of described what we're going through in our community as a crisis. And because of that, it is important for us to have wonderful programs like this for the summer. And so it was fantastic. It really was. And we had, I think there were 60 attendees who were there, and primarily the young people who are in the program. There were also two young men and Miss McIver. I didn't capture their names. I know it was Maceo and I think y'all call him Little Jimmy.
John Simmons.
There you go. Two young men who were there, and they're well on their way as far as their collegiate careers are concerned, and so they were recognized because they were former participants of the program. And it was amazing because there were even a couple of parents who just kind of showed up to get more information about the program. And by the end of the afternoon, they were like, yeah, how can I sign my student up? So really enjoyed meeting the students. And of course, Ms. McIver is going to get a little bit more into the summer literacy part. And I'll tag on the back of that with the employability skills class portion, and even share some information about our community partners. Just want to say we are so excited about all of the community partners that we now have on board and who are confirmed. And I think that list is going to grow. So by this, and we haven't even started yet. So it's really good. And we just want to thank the community also for embracing this as well.
Right.
Yeah. So Ms. McIver, I have the. I know you want to talk about the summer literacy lineup, and I don't think you've mentioned all of the book titles, but I do have an array of book covers that you've submitted. So if you want me to show those, I can.
Well, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
Yes. All right. This is The Fifth Little Girl, and it deals with the 16th Street bombing in Alabama, in Birmingham. And this was the survivor of that bombing that took place. As a matter of fact, immediately after the Emanuel 9 tragedy, the family came to Charleston. The sisters, Sarah Collins and her sisters, came to Charleston to meet with the survivors, the family members of those that were killed in the Emanuel 9 tragedy. They recognized so many similarities between what was happening then in Alabama and the hatred, the whatever occurred at the Emanuel AME Church. And Sarah Collins, with the help of author Tracy Snipe, wrote this book. When I got my copy, that's my signed autograph copy. All of the family members, my family members, received a signed autograph copy. When I picked up that book, I just couldn't put it down. It was so interesting, and it connected with the story because she told her story in Charleston to, an audience that was just so captivated by her experience, having been blinded temporarily from the explosion. And the most poignant thing that I heard her say was, during that time, they got no kind of medical, well, she got medical because of the explosion, but any mental health counseling. They went all those years without getting any at all. And it was almost like the story itself was swept up under the rug. and until this book came out, she started telling her story, that people actually learned the severity of what went on in that church. And the connection there is the church on 16th Street Baptist and the church in Charleston, that you would think that because of being such a religious institution, that could never happen. But since then, we've seen it happening in churches after churches after churches. So that particular book needs to be put in every home, not just because of the tragic event itself, but what occurred before, during, and after the tragedy. Okay.
Wow.
In this book, Ruby Bridges, this is a book where she was escorted by law enforcement to desegregate a school. Excuse me. And we also have another copy. This is for the very young reader. And I do have another copy here. And this is about Ruby Bridges as well. And this is more for emerging readers and maybe those up through early elementary school. So there are two different books. This one will be either read to students who don't have that level of comprehension as the other book. So we do have a complementary book for older readers, more emerging readers. This is the pretty little black girl, and I already have identified who this book is going to. She'll be surprised when she gets it. But that book, it talks about skin color. Yeah. I could remember when I was growing up in Charleston, my skin tone is dark. And in our school, we had some brighter skinned young people. Sometimes they call them brass ankle. Or then we had the Immaculate Conception School, which was called ICS, which is a Catholic school, but all of the light-skinned kids went there, or the kids that were in mixed marriages, came from mixed parentage. However, there was one little black girl there that looked just like me. There was one, and I do know, and I knew her as well. But they had at ICS, that was considered the school for the lighter skinned blacks, or brass ankles as we called them. And then Burke High School, where I graduated, everybody else appeared to be kind of normal in some way. But this little book here is going to shake some of our little girls up, because everybody doesn't have that long hair and slick hair, and everybody is not light skinned in this book. So I know who this book is going to.
Ms. McIver, I have to ask, in light of what this book is about, and also what your experiences were down in Charleston, shed some light on your thoughts and maybe even feelings about the fact that even within our own culture, there was a level of segregation, and it was based on skin color, when we were already fighting a much bigger fight because of our skin color. Why do you think that it was happening even within our culture?
Well, we were so separated as a society. So white was right, and the lighter you got to white, you were going to be given some preferential treatment. I could remember in my high school, Burke High School, we had over 3,000 kids in my high school, because that was the black high school. Okay. We had over 3,000 kids back then in the 1960s. And in that school, every queen that was elected, and this was elected by the student body now, but every queen that was elected as Miss Burke were either tan, pecan tan, light, or whatever until Marjorie McIver came along. I was the first dark skinned Miss Burke. When they got to 2,000 votes, they stopped counting because that meant that I already had the majority. But you wouldn't believe the few blacks, now there were few of them, and one black teacher who was darker than I, who wanted to contest the voting.
The voting.
Did you understand what I just said?
Yes, ma'am. I totally understand.
One black teacher, and do you know the day that he made his comment? Because I was born on the other side of the track. But the day he made his comment, do you know he didn't have a class that day? The kids boycotted. I could tell you some stories, and I started writing and all that. I just hadn't finished. I didn't have time to finish it because I was so busy learning about my history, which I still am. I'm a lifelong learner. And this reading, summer literacy, academic enrichment program is a blessing for me because now I get to learn my history. But yes, back then, within Burke High School, within the community itself, there was also division. In 1963, we had the marches. Now, I come from a family of 10, and education was important with everybody. Of the 10, 9 are college graduates, and my brother was I'm going to just call him the sheep of the family. So, by the time he got to high school with me, which was the third from the, oldest, but he decided he wasn't going to finish high school because he could not stand going to high school with me, a senior, because he was a senior for about 3 years back then.
Back then.
Yeah. But as we were coming up and the civil rights movement was so heavy in the Charleston, we boycotted. I was in jail more times than I would even want to think about at this time. But I was one of like 4 student leaders who were assigned to go into business establishments that would not accept blacks through the front door. We had to be served at the back. We couldn't go in, but served out whatever we ordered at the back. The counters at the 5 and 10 stores like Woolworths and Edwards 5 and 10, you didn't find dark-skinned people working behind those counters. And at that time, the lighter kids couldn't work because blacks weren't allowed to do it. But when we did protest and we got all of that settled, then they started hiring blacks. But you know who they hired first, right? The light-skinned black. So those experiences helped to shape me as an individual, me as an educator. And I'll tell you one last story, and I don't want to bore you with it, but I get a chance to tell it now.
So not bored.
There was a Chinese restaurant in Charleston on King Street. The surprising thing was he married a black woman. So his children went to ICS. And we, the 4 student leaders, we dress up. Oh, yeah. And we went through the front door of that restaurant. And of course, they shut it down, closed it. And one of the things that they said, if you go through that front door and you black, they had this, what you call it, sword, what do you call that? Well, anyway, they had it up on the wall as part of the decoration, that he'll probably take that sword down. So they were trying to instill fear in us that we were our heads were going to be chopped off and all that. But we went in the restaurant, and there was a detective, and I cannot research to find out who he is. I know he's long been deceased, but he was the detective that came to pick the 4 leaders up every time we were arrested. Then they would take us to the police precinct and book us and all of that. But the guy was so nice. And every time he came, he was the one that came to get us. But this particular time, do you know what that owner of that Chinese restaurant said? Because he had his children in ICS school. He said, I cannot be the first, but I promise you I will not be the last. And he kept that promise. When the businesses on King Street and everywhere else desegregated, because I mean, we sat at fountains, at countertops and whatever. And all of the customers left the restaurant or left the counter because they weren't going to be seated and eating beside us. So the experiences are real. Those things that you're seeing and reading in books or that you've seen in movies, depicted in those documentaries, especially PBS, where they're now trying to just get rid of PBS because they don't want these stories to be told. So those experiences are very real to me, and that's why I can identify so well with these books. Now, did I answer your question, or did I answer your question?
You answered my question, and you actually shed light on what I know to be kind of the pattern of this educational program since its inception. And it's now, Brother Edward, we have another reason to call her an icon, because Ms. McIver is able to incorporate into her selection process books that are actually based on some of her stories, some of her history, things that she knows about. And so, who's to say we would ever be introduced to I'm a pretty little black girl if Ms. McIver hadn't have had the experience that she had. And yet it is such a huge challenge and issue within the Black community. It's something that we don't talk about openly. It's something that, if anything, we try to act like it doesn't exist, because you have people who try to, act like they're pro-black, and they're blacker than black. And yet in certain circles, that light skin privilege kind of bubbles up, and especially in corporate settings. And so I think it's great that we're introducing these themes to the youth, tweens, and teens now, because they're going to encounter, it's not going away. They're going to encounter something similar to what Ms. McIver is describing at some point in their lives. And so this is great. And we can talk about that all day. That's a whole nother subject, but we can talk about that all day. So Ms. McIver, and there's a few more books. You have Lamar Takes a Trip and Maya Takes a Trip. So tell us about those two.
Lamar and Maya were first introduced to us during the Martin Luther King program. We had a young lady, she calls herself Auntie Sierra Williams. She's the author of these books, and she is a STEMS person. And in this trip that Maya takes and Lamar takes, we kind of merged it with our trips on the Gullah Geechee corridor. All of these adventures that you see, or these books that you see, they're eventually going to lead us on a field trip. And we have these summer field trip experiences where we take the kids to some site along the corridor. In the past, we've gone to Cecil Williams Museum in Orangeburg, South Carolina. We've gone to the International African American Museum in Charleston. We've gone to South Carolina State, where the Orangeburg Massacre occurred in Orangeburg. And from there, that site, which has a marker there at the bowling alley site. We've gone to Georgetown to, most of the Harriet Tubman experiences, the unveiling of the statue. We've gone, we've taken the trip to Sandy Island. Now that was an experience. Miss Harriet, that lady is something else on that island. But if you haven't been on a trip to Sandy Island, it behooves you miss it. You don't need to miss it. So
Right.
we're trying to take all of these trips along the corridor to expose our kids to sites and spaces and places that have history. All of them do, really. Every place in South Carolina and North Carolina. And the Gullah Geechee corridor extends itself from Wilmington, North
Jacksonville.
Carolina, and further down to the northern tip of Florida, the St. Augustine area. So any site that's along that corridor, we just hope maybe one day to visit.
I just think there's just so much history down that court. I mean, it's just there's a lot to learn, lot more to go. Okay,
Right.
A lot more to learn.
Know, a lot of things happen on the water, near the water.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and now it's happening more where the water is causing us to lose land and property and all of that because these folks want to get back to the water. And they'll do it at any means necessary. All right, this book, I'm telling you, I couldn't put this book down. It's a small book with maybe about 100 or so pages in it. But in this book, there are chapters in this book, and the chapters are so short that the kids can read this in just one, setting or sitting. They could just read it, and it talks about his, they have quotes in there, and it talks about some of his experiences, not in depth, but the lesson that you could learn from life lessons that can be learned. And that's a read that I would want to put in everybody's library, everybody's home. And, you know, John Lewis was the one that, he sat on the floor of Congress for I don't know how many hours because he was protesting still at that age. And he was the one that was one of the leaders of the march at the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And what I did, what the book doesn't have in it, I incorporated into some history in the activity packet that the kids will be receiving beginning Monday.
I can't wait to read this actual book. It was given to me by a friend just recently, and he said, I think you would enjoy this reading. So I'm going to sink my teeth into this one this summer as well, Ms. McIver.
Okay.
All right. And so, of course, the Green Book and iterations of that book are books that were introduced when we first started this program, maybe within that second year or something like that. So talk a little bit about this one. I think this is the last one that I have as far as
do you have the one that has all of those books? The Watsons Go to Birmingham,
I don't have
the Green
Book. I can pull those up real quick if you'd like.
Okay, I think I sent that one after those came up. But in addition to that, there is this book. Can anybody? It's hard.
Green Book. Yeah, there you go. That's it.
The Green Book of South Carolina. Now I have quite a few copies of these because I ordered it for some of my young lady friends who I mentored when they were in middle school. And since we haven't connected for them to pick it up, the books now belong to the children. So this book deals with South Carolina's sites and places and spaces, and it has some things in here that would be very interesting to all of us across South Carolina, and to know and understand that some of these are places and spaces that we couldn't go back then. So if you all, every home could get this book, The Green Book of South Carolina. The other Green Book by Victor Hugo Green talks about the travels and the experiences on the road. And that book right here, Opening the Road, also talks about travels and how life was like. And there was, I can't think of the movie where the artist, the pianist, was traveling, and he encountered some of these same things. As he traveled, he was going to play music across the country. What was the name of that movie?
I know the movie you're talking about, but I can't put my.
You talk. I think the green, not the Green Mile, but it was
No.
not that.
Give me 2 seconds, I'll find it. But I know what you're talking about because a claimed actor was playing and he was riding in the back seat, right?
Right. He had a
There you go.
chauffeur.
Mhm.
The chauffeur wasn't used to hanging around blacks, and the pianist artist was not used to being around blacks himself because he was so gifted in the venues that he played in. They were for the upper echelon, so to speak. But
so
that
knows it.
Yeah, if that particular movie, as well as these books, and I make the connection, Opening the Road, the Green Book of South Carolina, and some of these movies and documentaries that are out there that will talk about, and even when you think about Atlantic Beach, the artists that compilation right there, all of those books complement each other. So even if a young person last year read The Watsons Go to Birmingham, they may get to read one of the others to make the connection as well. But going back to Atlantic Beach, how those artists that would come to the area, they couldn't stay in Myrtle Beach. They had to be housed in Atlantic Beach.
Right.
Because Myrtle Beach was closed to us. So
Miss Mac, it is it is the Green Book. That's the name of the movie. I just looked it up.
The Green Book?
But that's the name of the movie, yes.
Okay.
That was the name of the movie. The Green Book. It's based on a true story, so it's
right.
Okay.
But anyway, I think it was based on the Green Book itself. But it's called the Green Book. Okay.
Yeah, it's called the Green Book.
All right. So some of you may have seen that movie, and whatever happened in that movie is what blacks experienced on the road. Okay. So, and the connection also between Apple or Harriet, that's the Born on the Water book that we read last year, and Steve Williams's Harriet Tubman and John Bowley's Adventure. But we've got many more books that I've read, and I've got the activities already outlined. On Monday, I generally now work with the younger kids. Last summer, we had 7 young boys. Now, that's a handful in itself. And this year, we have at least 11 children in that age group, 6-year-old and 7-year-olds. We will also add some of the 8 and 9-year-olds that were in the program that came to my home last summer. So I've designated who those folks are and why we want them there. And when they come in on Monday, they'll get a full breakfast, as I have to cook. They will get a full lunch, as I have to cook and they have to eat. And they'll get their snacks. But it will only be on Monday and Wednesday. We're only doing 2 days a week, and I've already notified some of the parents. When they come in, there will be a series of things that they will be doing, and one has to do with life skills. They will be taught life skills, all of this stuff. They will be taught life skills first. We will go over these terms, and then we will also look at what we call the 12 power words. And this is for everybody, not just the kids, but the parents. There are 12 power words, and I'll just briefly tell you what it is. You can see: trace, analyze, synthesize, infer, evaluate, formulate, describe, explain, support, summarize, compare, contrast, and predict. These are terms that are used on all of these standardized tests, all of the teacher-made tests. If a kid knows these 12 words, they should be able to decipher what it is that either the question is asking or the teacher's asking from whatever work that they're doing in the class. So they'll be exposed to that as well. And then, we have some fun times, educational games, and they're able to sit at tables and compete with these games that they love. And we've got a wide variety of those. One of the things that's different with this year's program is that on our calendar of events and activities, instead of asking the young people to read this book and at the end of the program, they're to make this final presentation, each week they will be required to submit something. Each week, the young people will be required to submit something. And this is what we call monitoring. And in the monitoring, with the 40 kids that we've got in this program, I wouldn't have time, or the committee wouldn't have time to just sit and try to filter through all of that material at one time. So we are asking the young people to submit on a weekly basis, submit something. And that goes now to looking at who those committee people are, and then I'll keep my mouth closed. You have, of course, Icon Junior, Miss April Garner Davis, and she handles all of our PRs pieces and our digital pieces, our book covers, our program covers, our registration, and all of that. So, we are totally indebted to her, because without that, prior preparation, we wouldn't be able to survive and as successfully as we are at this point, because I'm real comfortable at this point. Are you, Edward? Are you, April? Because I'm a little bit more comfortable right now that we have put all the ducks in places.
Yeah.
Now we can sit and look at the fruits of our labor. Okay.
I'm a very fortunate person. I'm surrounded by so many icons, icons juniors,
and beautiful people,
and Mrs. Joella. That is an icon.
Okay, and we have with the classes, Miss Gwendolyn Alston, who has been Gwendolyn. I met Gwendolyn at Myrtle Beach High School. She was a Scott band, one of our, cheerleaders, just super. And we connected from Myrtle Beach High School up and for years. We just became friends. I became friends of the family. And ever since we started the summer camp in 2009, Gwen has been working as a teacher in the summer camp. She is still there. She came Saturday. She took the kids who were brought by parents, the very young ones who didn't need to stay in that lengthy presentation. She took them inside the library and did story time with them, dance and plays and arts and crafts. And they have a beautiful time with her. She compliments me in that she's the good person. Okay. She's the one that they run to when I have to discipline. Okay. But she is just a godsend, and she's been with me since she was in high school.
I think her attitude shows that. She has a magnificent attitude.
Right. And when I'm frowning, she's smiling. So the kids get the best of both worlds, is what I call it. And then we have our historian and researcher, Miss Joella McQueen. And she keeps us busy. She goes out and finds stuff to put in our lap. But so far, it's been beautiful. And then we have Miss Zenobia Harper, who's the director of the Joyner Institute at Coastal Carolina University. And she brings a wealth of experiences. And April will tell you about the summer job and her input with that, how they'll partner with us. She and her husband both They are financial as well, and so I'm indebted to them for that. And they're also responsible for the community garden pieces that we are pulling together. Because
let's not leave Brother Jordan out.
oh yeah, he's a part of that. But Miss Tanya Pickett, who handles all of our school connected pieces, and she asked the parents on Saturday to give her permission to be able to pull up grades periodically to see how these kids are going. And if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, then we'll naturally have to put fire up under them. So the parents who were there agreed to, but we will have a written consent form for her to be able to do that so we can monitor the kids' work in progress as they progress through school. Then we have Miss April Floyd Brown, and the April does our coordination. She loves middle and high school folks, so she'll be working with that group. And then Marlo Frazier, who provides some technology and some digital pieces. And we have Michael Frazier.
She's fantastic at that.
Michael Frazier, her husband, who is a historian in himself. He reads, and he'll help us with the library book coordination. Of course, Mr. Edward McQueen, the photographer, the iconic photographer,
that guy
who you all know. And then Miss Pam Jones has come on board when we had the summer camp. And then she comes and assists whenever we do community activities. So she's wonderful, retired educator and a community activist. And then at Coastal, of course, we have Miss Allie Crandall, who helps us with any kind of PR, anything we need, printed posters or whatever. She comes up with that. And these swag bags, which I have 30 swag bags in the house now to give to the volunteers of these programs. And then we have our financial sponsors, Walkmore Primary with Dr. McIver, and Inlet Premier with Dr. Hodges, and of course Joel and Edwin McQueen, and the Harpers, Zenobia and Jerry Harper, McIver Law Firm, and Angela Graham McIver by herself. We'll give her kudos by herself. In addition to
she does a fantastic job by herself.
Yeah. And so with that in mind, all I can say is I'm enjoying this. Hopefully we will have some parents who will want to read while their children are reading. And I have activity packets for you too. I can streamline any of those books to accommodate you. And one of the activities that we have that could be a family activity is called Random Acts of Kindness Day. And it's one sheet. And I don't want to go into this right now, but I will include it in the packets that the young people will have. They will go out and do a community service. And that is why I love what's coming up next. The connection to the jobs, summer job program. And the reason why I say that, academics play a vital part in all of this. If these kids don't know how to read, if they don't know how to comprehend whatever, it doesn't matter what job they go on, they're going to need these skills. So I'm going to leave out and put April on right now.
All right. Well, thank you, Ms. McIver. And I just wanted to, as she was going over the community partners, wanted to make sure that we kind of keeping with that flow to also show you the community partners who are involved with the Employment Exploration Week that is a part of the 6-week schedule for the employability course. And so we'd like to thank the Shepherd's Table. I visited the Shepherd's Table on Monday, and having been a board member some years ago and a volunteer prior to that, it was really good to see the progress that's been made at the Shepherd's Table, where they were once just a community kitchen that fed anyone, actually anyone who wanted a meal, but more importantly, those who needed an extra resource. And now they've expanded to include a food pantry and have a really big partnership with the Low Country Food Bank for even cold storage lockers that are positioned on the backside of the shepherd's table. And you can call in and pre-order an assortment of foods if you need them. And you're given a special code where you can actually go into your locker and pull your foods out whenever the orders are fulfilled. And so it was wonderful to see all of the wonderful things. Of course, they have a wonderful kitchen manager, and they're excited about the possibility of including the volunteers and as far as the students at the shepherd's table, not only on the pantry side, but also on the kitchen side for those who are interested in culinary. McIver and Graham Law Firm, Inlet Premier, Ms. McIver mentioned that a few minutes ago with Dr. Torian Hodges, who was wonderful on Saturday. He had great words of encouragement for the students and gave some great insight into how they should think about selecting college and selecting a major, and also what they need to pull from within in order to make sure that they complete college successfully. And so the latest community partner that we have brought on board is Hobcob Barony Coastal Carolina University by way of Zenobia Harper. And this is an exciting partnership wherein Hobcob is going to be able to take some engineering or students who are interested in engineering or STEM careers to work with two of their interns. And this is sponsored through the University of Dayton, the University of South Carolina, and the Joiner Institute of Coastal Carolina. The interns will be with Zenobia until the end of July. And basically, it's just an opportunity for them to work at Hobcob Barony, which has turned into a research facility, and actually learn more about some of the elements of what they do at Hobcob that actually relate to engineering and STEM careers. So this is an exciting addition. We have Dr. James Adamson, as you know, a retired physician who was recently recognized by Conway Medical Center as a distinguished physician. And Conway Medical Center have agreed to work with our youth to introduce them to medical careers. So we have a number of students who've expressed a career interest in going into medicine, different phases of medicine, different categories of medicine. And one of the things that we attempted to do and to be intentional about this year is to place students in either volunteer or job shadowing opportunities that closely related to what they think they want to do as a career step. And so this will give them an opportunity to find out more about it, to make so that they can make sure that this is what they want to do before selecting these majors in college, but also to just kind of understand, all of the facets that are involved when a student says, "Oh, I want to go into medicine." Well, did you know that there are probably, hundreds of thousands of things that you could possibly do in the world of medicine, as well as engineering? There's biomedical engineering that one of the students mentioned, which involves robotics and things like that. And so we want to introduce the students to their career interests early on so that they can make informed and educated decisions. The Juice Crush, glad to announce that the Juice Crush is also going to be a part of our Employment Exploration Week. And Juice Crush, those ladies are really doing some big things on the corner right there at 501 and Race Path. And that's, of course, their line of business involves culinary, but it also involves manufacturing and just business entrepreneurship. So any student who's in the program who's interested in that facet of careers can, possibly have an exploration with the Juice Crush. Shanika Hannah Brown, we've spoken with her, and she's agreed for any students who are interested in anything that has to do with cosmetology or, owning a salon. She's willing to take on some students. Vince Myers and Horry Georgetown Technical College will be handling some tours and other types of exploration that involve information technology or information sciences, cybersecurity, that type of thing, as well as the culinary, which, of course, as you know, Horry Georgetown Tech has the ICI over on the Myrtle Beach campus. So we're excited about that opportunity. Ms. McIver mentioned Dr. McIver and Angela, and we thank them for the opportunity. Of course, Dr. McIver always has an intern in his office. Dr. Tracy Nelson is also on board. We talked to Ozell Newman, who is also an engineer, about some job shadowing. Palmetto Kids, of course, that is kind of the youth arm. That program works heavily with youth in our community, and there are some students who are interested in doing that as a career field. And then Steve Williams is also one of our community partners in terms of supporting the literacy program, but also if there's any students I was thinking who might be interested in writing or journalism as a career path, and Steve would be a wonderful person for them to talk with. And so, those are some of the community partners, and that list is growing. If you're interested in being a community partner, be in touch with me. And right now we have approximately 24 students who are signed up. Again, we went into Saturday's event with only about 20 students signed up, and I was able to pick up 4 or 5 just from the event on Friday or on Saturday. And right now I'm good as far as the students that we've added over the weekend. I'm going to be sending out an assignment for them because we kick off on June 10th with our very first session of the employability course. And so here's some information about what we're going to be doing. This was shared with the students on Saturday, but this is Employability Skills 101. So we had our kickoff. June 10th is the first of our virtual classes. We'll meet every Tuesday from 11 to 12, and that's via Zoom. So that's, extremely convenient for the students, but also they will have the opportunity to not only do some educational and enrichment activities, they'll hear from guest speakers, they'll have interactive activities, things of that nature. And then the week of July 7th through the 11th, they'll be in their employment exploration week, which involves the community partners that I just talked about. And then we'll wrap up the summer jobs program / employability skills course July 15th with our last class of the 6-week flight. And that's where we will kind of, get some input and feedback from the participants about their experiences. We'll talk about what they need to do moving forward, and just kind of wrap it all up and give them their certificates of completion at the end of the course. And so as far as the breakdown for some of the sessions, the first course is going to be our Welcome to Employability 101, where we will explore what it means to be employable, and then followed by an introduction to personal finance. That particular session is going to be presented by Sherilyn DeWitt, who is a licensed CPA out of Reston, Virginia, and she's going to do a fantastic job, I'm sure, of introducing students to all of the things they need to know about how to manage their finances, how to plan, save, budget, and she might even throw in a little investment talk, which is something that we need to introduce our young people to. We also have our workplace professionalism presentation, which will happen on June 24th, and we'll have Tanya Robinson, and I know everyone knows Tanya. She's doing her thing with her Diva Unlimited life coaching consulting business, and she goes around the schools now talking to students about having a positive attitude and making great choices when it comes down to professionalism in the workplace. And also mainly we have her talking about dressing for success during this particular session. And so we'll wrap it up with a session on time management and organization, and then again going to the exploration week, and then the final week of wrap up. So this is kind of the outline for the entire course, and we're just extremely excited to get started. I'll just let anyone know who's watching, parents or students, I'm sending out your first assignment this evening for the Employability 101 course, Intro to Employability Skills, which happens next Tuesday. I'll also be sending out the Zoom link. And of course, Ms. McIver, I'll send that information to you as well, so that you can share it with the other participants who may want to join us. But we're extremely excited about these two programs. And I just want to thank as well the Shepherd's Table for giving us such a great posting on Facebook. Was not expected. I just dropped in to say hey to some great people, and I was asked to take a photo, and then they gave us a beautiful write-up about our summer programs. And that's what, making a connection in the community is all about. We really want them to understand what we're trying to do, and we're grateful for partners like the Shepherd's Table for even seeing the vision and wanting to support. So thank you to all of our community partners. And again, the list is growing, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that a little bit later. So Brother Edward, I'll kick it to you.
Well, I can't say too much more than what you can say, what you've said, but I will say this. Hold on, let me get back on here. Oops.
We can hear you.
Yeah, okay, you can see me now, right?
We can see you.
Yeah. To our viewers and to those of you who enjoyed our program the last 2 years, it wasn't last year, but the last 2 years, and subsequent years before them. Since 2017, we've had the Summer Jobs Program. And just want to let you know that our ability to grow is enlightening in what April is saying, and that is, it's such a departure from what we were used to doing. We're just placing you in a summer job someplace, and looked at it very valuable. It worked out extremely well, but we're happy to try this new structure that April is instituting, and we're cooperating. And we want to make this the best summer jobs program that we've had. Looks like it's going this very, very well, especially when she talks about our community partners and the people who are going to be backing us and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm always very receptive to something that's innovative, and this is one of those innovative things that such a departure from our since 2017, since we started the Summer Jobs Program. So just it's going to be good. So I just wanted to make let the audience know, let you all know that I think what the new structure is encompassing, what April just explained. It sounds great to me, and hopefully, you all will receive that in such a fantastic way itself. So. Okay. So
I just have one last thing to say. I'm a firm believer in starting and finishing. And with both of these programs, we expect the young people not to just start, but they need to follow through and get to the end. And as we all know, it's not all about the money. But at the end of the program, once you successfully complete it, then you will be able to reap the benefits through a stipend that will be given in both programs. However, if you don't complete it, then you don't expect to receive that stipend. So I'm going to ask parents right now to please pledge to support. I'm asking neighbors. I'm asking those organizations that host children who might be in the programs, either one,
right,
to please encourage these young people to finish what they start.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Absolutely.
The stipend that Ms. McIver alluded to, we didn't discuss that in any great length, but you're going to like it, okay, at the end of the program. We're going to make sure that you're going to like the stipend. Right, April?
Absolutely. There's very few places that, I would say this, there are very few programs that are offered, community programs, wherein we are paying or offering a stipend to the youth or to the participants to be a part of the program. Okay, this is, you can liken this experience to an internship. When I was in career services, I advocated for paid internships. And you can liken even what's happening with the summer literacy program, because this is the first time that some of these students will have the opportunity to earn some money. And what better way to enrich them in terms of learning how to earn money than to, with the summer jobs program course like this, teaching them how to practice good behaviors, present good attitudes, giving them all the skill sets that they need to understand before they actually go into the workplace. And you're learning while you're earning, right? And so, and learning while you're earning while you're learning. But also Steve Williams said you learn, you earn, and you return. And so he said that on Saturday. And what we want these students also to walk away with, a couple of years from now when they're too old to be in the program, but they're going off to college or they're going out to the workforce, and they're recalling all these wonderful things they learned, the history from the literacy side and employability skills from this side. we want them to say, you know what, my village supported me and helped me to be better than I could ever be. It's always a learning curve, and there's always room for improvement. But we're giving these young people a great head start, and hopefully one day they'll want to come back and do the same thing. And so I think that stipend is great. When I think about when I was a kid, if I had a program like that with a nice little stipend, I'd be really excited about returning to school in fall, because I have a nice little purse to go and buy some school clothes or books or shoes or whatever it is I needed to buy. So we're helping families as well by offering this stipend at the end of these programs. So you're getting enrichment, you're earning some money, you're learning about history, you're learning about how to become employable, and it's coming from your village. And I said in a post just yesterday that if the village does not learn how to rise with the tide, we will indeed be flooded. And we don't want to flood our community out with all of the things that could come through as challenges and barriers. We want to rise with the tide so that we can overcome these challenges and barriers. And what better way to do it than these summer programs? So I'm going to say this last thing, and then we're going to call it a night. There are tons of summer enrichment programs that I see across the network, across social media. I'm always sharing in the network. In Horry County, Georgetown County, Marion County, some are affiliated with churches and some are through organizations. I'm going to continue to share that information because just like with this particular group of programs, as you can see, there are participants who have signed up for both programs. So if there's a possibility that our young people can sign up for everything that's out there, if their parents can support it and if they have the time and the energy, then do it. And if you have any type of summer enrichment programs or things that you are producing for the young people, please continue to post them in the network or post them on social media, and I'll post them as much as possible. But I just want to thank everyone again for their support. And on behalf of World Community Magazine and Ms. McIver, who's sitting here, the icon, we certainly do appreciate it. And we're ready. We're ready for June 10th. Ms. McIver, you're starting June 9th, right?
June 9th, Monday morning.
Yep. And we're going to be ready to go on June the 10th. So, yep, Brother Edward, that's it. That's it.
Okay, why is it I can't see Miss McIver? Is that
I'm right here.
No, she's there. I see her. Yep, yeah. I see her. Yeah, we see you. So it's time to sign off. We can hear you too.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Okay, thanks. All right.
All right. So everyone take care. Yes, have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook.